You saved my ranch, and now I owe you more than gold," the rancher told the young Apache woman. Tom Lawson had always been proud of his ranch. It had been in his family for generations, stretching across rolling hills and wide open pastures where the wind carried the scent of grass and wildflowers. The ranch had seen good years and hard years, but recently the hard years had outweighed the good. Droughts had come and gone, the market prices for cattle had dropped, and storms had damaged fences and barns. Each day, Tom felt the weight of responsibility pressing down harder. He wasn't young anymore, and the ranch demanded more energy and strength than he felt he had. On one particular morning, the sun rose lazily over the horizon, casting long golden streaks across the dry fields. Tom walked through the pasture, inspecting the fences that had been weakened by last night's windstorm. The cattle moved slowly, their heads lowered as they searched for grass which was scarce in places. Tom sighed, wiping his hand across his forehead. "Another bad year," he muttered to himself. He knew that without help the ranch might not survive. Tom's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of someone calling out. At first he thought it was one of the ranch hands, but when he turned, he saw a young woman walking toward him. She was not dressed like a typical ranch worker. Her clothing was practical and sturdy, but different from what he was used to seeing, earth-toned clothes with a simple leather satchel across her shoulder. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her eyes held a calm confidence. "Hello," she said softly but clearly. "I'm Aeon. I heard you might need some help." Tom studied her carefully. He had seen people come and go, offering to work on the ranch for a while, but most didn't last long. Something about her, though, seemed different. She wasn't asking for money right away, and there was a quiet strength in her stance. Still, Tom hesitated. "I don't know," he said cautiously. "This ranch, it's hard work. Not everyone can handle it." Aeon smiled gently. "I've worked on land all my life. I know how to take care of animals and repair fences. If you let me help, I promise I'll work as hard as anyone you've had here." Tom scratched his beard. There was a mixture of curiosity and doubt in his eyes. He had always believed that the land had a way of guiding people to it, and something told him that this young woman had a purpose here. "All right," he said finally. "You can start tomorrow morning, but don't expect me to hold your hand. This is honest, hard work." Aeon nodded, her expression steady. "I don't expect anything else." The next morning, Aeon arrived at sunrise. The cool morning air carried the smell of earth and dew. Tom handed her a pair of gloves and a hat, and together they walked through the pastures. She listened carefully as Tom explained which fences needed repair and which cattle needed attention. Her movements were quick but precise, showing that she understood the rhythm of ranch work. As the hours passed, Tom began to notice something remarkable. Aeon didn't just follow instructions. She observed the land and the animals as if she could sense what they needed. When a cow seemed anxious, she approached it calmly, speaking in soft tones until it relaxed. When a fence post was unstable, she tested it carefully and fixed it with skill and patience. Tom found himself impressed, and a small spark of hope ignited within him. Perhaps with her help, the ranch could survive this tough season. During a break in the work, Tom offered her a simple lunch: bread, cheese, and apples. They sat under the shade of an old oak tree, the wind rustling the leaves above them. "So, tell me," Tom said, trying to make conversation, "where are you from? You don't seem like you're from around here." Aeon smiled faintly. "I grew up on Apache land not far from here. My family taught me how to live with the land, to respect it, and to work with it. I've always felt a connection to open spaces, to animals, to the earth itself." Tom nodded, feeling a sense of admiration. It was rare to meet someone who not only worked hard but understood the deeper connection between people and the land. "I've lived here all my life," he said quietly. "Sometimes I forget what it means to really care for it." Aeon looked at him kindly. "The land remembers even when people forget. It shows you what needs attention if you listen." As the day turned into afternoon, Tom watched Aeon continue her work. She repaired broken fence lines, helped move the cattle to fresh pasture, and even found a clever way to redirect a small stream to water a parched area of grass. Tom realized he hadn't seen the ranch look so alive in years. It was as if Aeon brought not just her skills, but a renewed energy that spread to the land itself. By the time the sun began to dip below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, both of them were tired but satisfied. Tom leaned on his shovel and looked around the ranch. "I'll admit," he said slowly, "I didn't expect much from someone new, but you've already made a difference." Aeon wiped her brow and smiled. "I'm glad I could help. The ranch has potential. It just needed a little guidance and care." For the first time in months, Tom felt a sense of relief. Perhaps the ranch could survive this season. Perhaps with Aeon's help it could even thrive again. He realized that he wasn't just gaining a worker. He was gaining someone who truly understood the land, someone who could see what he sometimes missed. As they walked back to the main house together, the shadows of the hills stretched long across the fields. Tom found himself thinking not only about the work that needed to be done, but also about the unexpected friendship that was beginning to grow. In a world that had been harsh and unforgiving, this young Apache woman had brought a spark of hope, and maybe, just maybe, a chance for the ranch to survive. That night, Tom sat on the porch, looking out at the fields under a blanket of stars. He thought about the day's work and the quiet determination of the young woman who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. The ranch had always been his responsibility, but now he felt that it was no longer a burden he carried alone. Aeon had arrived at exactly the right time, and he sensed that her presence was meant to change more than just the fences and pastures. In the stillness of the night, with the wind whispering through the trees and the distant sound of cattle lowing, Tom whispered to himself, "Maybe this ranch isn't lost yet." And deep down, he knew that tomorrow, with Aeon's help, they would continue working side by side, facing whatever challenges the land or life threw at them. For the first time in a long while, Tom allowed himself to believe in the possibility of hope. The following weeks brought a sense of cautious optimism to the ranch. Tom rose early each morning, determined to keep pace with Aeon, who worked tirelessly from sunrise until the sun dipped low behind the hills. The air was often crisp, carrying the scent of earth and the faint smell of smoke from the chimneys. Tom noticed that despite the long hours, Aeon seemed energized rather than tired, her movements smooth and efficient. She knew which fences were weak, which areas needed more water, and which cows were sick or anxious. Tom, on the other hand, sometimes felt exhausted before the day was half over, but seeing Aeon's determination gave him strength. He admired not only her skill but her patience. She never rushed, never complained, and somehow the land seemed to respond to her presence. Grasses seemed greener where she had worked, and even the stubborn old mule seemed to follow her calmly. One afternoon, dark clouds began gathering over the horizon. The wind picked up, rattling loose boards and bending the thin trees near the pasture. Tom frowned as he looked toward the hills. "That doesn't look good," he muttered. Aeon, who had been inspecting the cattle, glanced up and said calmly, "A storm is coming. We should prepare now." Tom nodded, knowing she was right. Together they moved quickly. They secured loose tools, strengthened the fences, and guided the cattle into a safer area of the pasture. Aeon directed Tom with quiet authority, showing him clever ways to reinforce the weaker fences and divert small streams to prevent flooding in the fields. Even in the face of the storm, her calmness inspired confidence. As the first drops of rain fell, the wind howled across the plains. Lightning cracked the sky, and the sound of thunder rolled through the hills like a warning. Tom and Aeon worked side by side, drenched and tired, but determined to protect the ranch. Aeon's hands moved with practiced precision, tying knots and adjusting ropes, while Tom did his best to keep up. Despite his experience, he realized that he had underestimated the difficulty of this storm. At one point, a particularly strong gust knocked over a small shed near the barn. Tom ran toward it, but Aeon was already there, steadying the structure with her strength. "We can't let this fall on the livestock," she shouted over the wind. Together, they managed to secure the shed just in time, preventing a disaster. Hours passed. The rain poured relentlessly, soaking them to the bone. Tom's muscles ached, and he felt moments of panic as he imagined losing the cattle or having the fences destroyed. Yet, Aeon remained focused, moving from one task to another without hesitation. She calmly assessed each problem, solved it, and moved on. Watching her, Tom realized that she wasn't just helping the ranch, she was saving it. As the storm reached its peak, lightning struck a nearby tree, sending sparks into the air. One of the smaller pastures began to flood. Tom panicked, fearing that some of the young calves might drown. "We can't get them out in time," he shouted. Aeon didn't hesitate. She grabbed a rope, tied it securely around one of the stronger calves and led it carefully to higher ground. Then she returned for another, repeating the process with patience and precision. Slowly but surely, they managed to move every animal to safety. By the time the storm finally passed, the ranch was a mess, but the damage could have been far worse. Broken branches and puddles covered the fields, and some fences were destroyed, but the cattle were safe. Tom leaned against a fence post, exhausted and drenched, staring at the young woman who had worked tirelessly beside him. "Aeon, I don't know how to thank you," he said, his voice filled with awe. "If it weren't for you, I'd have lost everything today." Aeon shook her head, her hair plastered to her face. "We did it together," she said softly. "The land gave us signs, we just had to act quickly." Tom realized that her words were true. Her knowledge of the land, her respect for it, and her quick thinking had saved the ranch. It wasn't just physical labor. It was understanding, observation, and a connection to the land that he had never fully appreciated before. Over the next few days, they began repairing the damage from the storm. Tom was amazed at how efficiently Aeon worked. She repaired broken fences, cleared fallen branches, and even found clever ways to channel rainwater into dry areas, ensuring that the grass would recover quickly. Tom followed her instructions, learning techniques he hadn't considered before. It was like seeing the ranch through her eyes. He realized that there was so much more he could do to care for it. During one quiet evening, as they rested after a long day, Tom and Aeon sat on the porch, watching the sky clear and the sun set. The air smelled fresh and clean after the rain, and the land looked almost reborn. "You know," Tom said thoughtfully, "I've been running this ranch all my life, but I don't think I've ever worked with someone like you. You see things I don't." Aeon smiled. "The land teaches you if you pay attention. It's not just about work. It's about listening, observing, and understanding." Tom nodded slowly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had been so focused on survival that he had forgotten the beauty and wisdom that the land offered. Aeon reminded him that there was more to ranching than just money or cattle. It was about connection, patience, and respect. The storm had been a test, and they had passed it together. Tom realized that he wasn't just gaining a helper, he was gaining a partner, someone who could see solutions where he saw only problems. He began to trust her judgment completely, letting her take the lead on repairs and planning. And in turn, Aeon respected his experience and knowledge of the ranch, creating a balance that made their work stronger. But the storm had also shown Tom something else. The ranch was fragile, and threats could come from more than just the weather. He had been lucky this time, but he knew that without Aeon, the outcome could have been very different. That thought stayed with him, filling him with a mix of humility and determination. One morning, after the sun had risen high and the air was warm and dry, Tom watched Aeon as she checked the fences again. She moved with grace and confidence, her eyes sharp and alert. "I've seen a lot of people try to work the land," she said, noticing his gaze. Some never last. Others think they can fight the land instead of listening to it. You listen. That's why this ranch survived today. Tom felt a lump in his throat. He had always thought of himself as a good rancher, but he realized that pride had sometimes blinded him to what truly mattered. Aeon had reminded him that success wasn't just about hard work. It was about understanding, respect, and timing. As the day went on, the ranch began to recover from the storm. The cattle grazed calmly, the fences were reinforced, and the fields started to dry under the warm sun. Tom felt a renewed sense of hope. With Aeon's help, the ranch could survive even the toughest challenges. And more than that, he felt that he had learned something valuable about himself, about resilience, and about trust. That evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Tom approached Aeon with a serious expression. "I have to admit," he said slowly, "I didn't think anyone could help me save this place, but you did more than just help. You saved it." Aeon looked at him, her expression calm but kind. "We saved it together," she said, "and there's still more to do. The land always needs care and the ranch isn't safe yet, but today, we've proven that we can face challenges and survive." Tom nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and admiration. He realized that Aeon was not just a worker. She was someone who had a deep understanding of life and the land, someone who could help him protect everything he had worked so hard for. And for the first time in a long while, he felt a real sense of partnership, of hope, and of gratitude. As night fell, the ranch was quiet except for the soft rustling of leaves and the distant lowing of the cattle. Tom stood on the porch, looking out at the fields that had survived the storm, and thought about the days ahead. He knew there would be more challenges, more storms, both literal and metaphorical, but he also knew that he was not facing them alone. Aeon's presence had changed everything. And in that quiet moment, Tom understood something he had never fully grasped before. Sometimes, help comes when you least expect it, in the form of someone who sees what you cannot, who acts when you are overwhelmed, and who restores hope when it is almost gone. After the storm had passed and the ranch had begun to recover, life slowly returned to a steady rhythm. Tom woke early each morning, as he always did, but now he felt lighter, almost as if a weight had been lifted. Aeon was there before him most days, already tending to the fields, inspecting the fences and checking on the cattle. Tom noticed how naturally she moved among the animals, her calm voice and gentle hands making the cattle trust her instantly. He had seen her work through storms and challenges, but now he realized her true strength wasn't just her skill, it was her understanding of life itself. One morning, as the sun rose in a soft golden haze, Tom found himself walking alongside Aeon through a pasture dotted with wildflowers. They were inspecting the fences, but the conversation drifted to other things. "So Aeon," Tom began hesitantly, "you grew up on Apache land, you said. What was it like?" Aeon smiled, pausing to watch a pair of deer grazing nearby. "It was peaceful," she said softly. "We learned to live with the land, to respect it. My family taught me that every living thing has its place, and every action has a consequence. It wasn't always easy, but it taught me patience and care." Tom listened carefully, feeling a sense of admiration he hadn't known before. "I've lived here all my life, but I think I missed some of that," he admitted. "I've been so focused on survival that I didn't notice the smaller things, the land itself, the animals, the balance of it all." Aeon looked at him kindly. "It's never too late to learn," she said. "And you're learning now. You faced challenges that many would give up on, yet here you are, still fighting for the ranch." Tom felt a lump in his throat. He realized that Aeon's presence had changed more than just the ranch, it had changed him. He felt a sense of trust and respect toward her that he had never offered anyone before. He had learned that life on the ranch wasn't just about hard work. It was about patience, understanding, and sometimes letting someone else guide you when you were too close to the problem. Over the next few days, Tom and Aeon worked side by side, repairing fences, tending the fields, and caring for the cattle. During breaks, they would sit under the shade of old oak trees, sharing stories about their pasts. Aeon told Tom about her family, the lessons her parents had taught her, and the traditions that had shaped her. She spoke about the importance of community, the cycles of nature, and the wisdom passed down through generations. Tom, in turn, shared stories of his own childhood on the ranch, the hardships he had faced, and the dreams he had for the land. He talked about the storms, the droughts, and the times he had almost given up. Aeon listened patiently, asking questions and offering insights that made him see things differently. He realized that these conversations were more than just small talk. They were building a bond of trust, understanding, and friendship. One afternoon, while they were repairing a fence near the edge of the pasture, Tom noticed Aeon studying the soil carefully. "What are you looking at?" he asked, curious. "The soil," she replied. "It tells a story. You can see where the water collects, where the grass grows best, and where the animals prefer to graze. If you understand it, you can work with it instead of against it." Tom nodded slowly. He had worked this land all his life, but he had never thought about it in this way. Watching Aeon, he realized that her knowledge went beyond simple ranch work. It was a deep connection to the land itself. He began to see the ranch through her eyes, noticing patterns and details he had overlooked for years. As the days passed, their bond grew stronger. They shared meals together, laughing over simple jokes, and sometimes sitting in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the hills. Tom found himself opening up to Aeon in ways he had never done with anyone else. He told her about his fears, his regrets, and his hopes for the future. Aeon, in turn, shared her dreams and her vision for living in harmony with the land. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat on the porch watching the stars appear in the clear night sky. Tom leaned back, feeling a rare sense of peace. "I never thought I'd find someone who understands this land like you do," he said quietly. "You've taught me so much in such a short time." Aeon smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "The land teaches us all if we listen," she said. "And sometimes it brings people together to help each other see what they've been missing." Tom realized she was right. He had been struggling alone for so long, believing that he had to bear the burden by himself. But Aeon had shown him that strength could come from partnership, from sharing the load, and from trusting someone who saw the world differently. Their growing friendship did not go unnoticed by the ranch hands. Some were skeptical at first, unsure of the young woman who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. But as they saw her work, her skill, and her calm authority, they began to respect her. Even the oldest hands, who had been on the ranch for decades, acknowledged that Aeon had a rare talent for understanding both animals and the land. One morning, while checking the fences near the creek, they discovered a small calf trapped in the mud. Its legs were stuck, and it was struggling to free itself. Tom's heart raced as he rushed to help, but Aeon acted quickly, directing him to tie a rope and guide the calf carefully. Her calm instructions and gentle touch saved the calf from harm. Tom marveled at her ability to stay composed under pressure, realizing once again that she had become indispensable to the ranch. As the weeks turned into months, the ranch began to flourish. The grass grew greener, the fences held strong, and the cattle were healthier than they had been in years. Tom felt a sense of pride, not just in the ranch, but in the partnership he had formed with Aeon. They had faced storms, challenges, and uncertainty together, and they had come out stronger. One afternoon, as they rested after a long morning of work, Tom turned to Aeon with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "I've faced many storms in my life, but I've never faced them with someone like you. You make everything seem possible." Aeon looked at him with a soft smile. "We make it possible together," she said. "It's not just me, and it's not just you. It's the land, the animals, and the work we put in. We're all part of it." Tom nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that Aeon had not only saved the ranch physically, but had also restored his faith in himself and in the future. Her presence had brought hope, strength, and understanding to a place that had been struggling for so long. That evening, as the sun set in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Tom and Aeon walked through the fields, inspecting the cattle and the fences. The land seemed alive, vibrant, and full of promise. Tom felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that with Aeon by his side, the ranch could face whatever challenges lay ahead. He also knew that their bond was more than just work. It was built on trust, respect, and a shared understanding of the land and life itself. They had faced storms together, learned from each other, and found strength in their partnership. Tom realized that Aeon had become more than a helper. She had become a true friend, someone he could rely on, and someone who had changed his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. As the night settled over the ranch, with the stars twinkling above and the gentle sounds of the cattle in the distance, Tom felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The ranch was safe, the land was healing, and he had found a companion who shared his respect and love for the earth. And in that quiet moment, Tom understood that the most valuable thing Aeon had brought to the ranch wasn't just her skill or knowledge. It was the connection, trust, and hope that had begun to grow between them. A bond that would carry them through the challenges yet to come, and one that neither of them would ever forget. Life on the ranch had settled into a steady rhythm after the storm, but Tom knew that calm could not last forever. He had faced nature's challenges, yet a new type of threat was approaching, one he could not easily control. One morning, while checking the perimeter of the ranch with Aeon, Tom noticed a group of unfamiliar men riding along the far edge of the property. They were dressed in suits, their horses well kept, and their eyes scanning the land as if they were calculating something. "Who are they?" Tom asked, his voice tight with unease. Aeon shaded her eyes with her hand and studied the group. "They're land developers," she said quietly. "They're looking to buy this ranch, probably at a price far below its value." Tom's stomach sank. He had faced droughts, storms, and failing markets, but he had never imagined anyone trying to take the ranch away from him. "We can't let them do that," he said firmly. "This land has been in my family for generations. I won't let them just take it." Aeon nodded, her expression serious. "We need a plan," she said. "We can't fight them with strength alone. They will use lawyers, contracts, and money. But we can fight with knowledge, community, and persistence. We have the advantage of understanding this land better than they ever will." Over the next few days, Tom and Aeon prepared for what was to come. They walked the boundaries, marking every corner and fence line. They documented the land carefully, noting the history, the natural resources, and the improvements made over the years. Aeon reached out to people she knew in the local community, quietly asking for advice and support. Tom realized that her approach was clever and thorough. She was thinking beyond the immediate problem and planning for long-term protection of the ranch. One afternoon, the developers returned, riding up the main path to the ranch house. Tom stood at the gate, his heart pounding as the leader of the group, a tall man in a dark suit, dismounted. "Mr. Lawson," the man said, his tone polite but firm, "we represent a group interested in purchasing this property. We are prepared to make you an offer you cannot refuse." Tom straightened, his hands gripping the gate. "I'm not selling," he said firmly. "This ranch belongs to my family and it's not for sale." The man smiled thinly. "We understand your sentiment, but consider the future. It's a struggling property. We can provide you with money, a new start, freedom from the burdens of ownership." Tom shook his head. "I don't want freedom from my responsibilities. I want to protect what my family built." Aeon stepped forward, her presence calm but commanding. "This land has value far beyond money," she said. "It has history, life, and community. You cannot simply buy it and take it away. We will not allow that." The developers exchanged glances, surprised by her confidence. Tom felt a surge of pride and relief. Aeon's calm authority made him feel stronger, as if he were not facing this threat alone. Over the next week, tension grew. The developers tried to pressure Tom, offering higher sums, sending letters, and even showing up unannounced to inspect the land. Tom felt the stress weighing heavily on him, but Aeon remained steady. She organized community meetings, inviting neighbors, local officials, and anyone who could help. She explained the importance of the ranch, not just as property, but as part of the local heritage, as a source of food and work, and as a home for generations. The community responded. People who had once thought the ranch was struggling began to see it in a new light. They admired the way Tom and Aeon had cared for the land, even in difficult times. Farmers, ranchers, and neighbors offered letters of support, volunteered to help, and spoke up when the developers tried to gain control. Tom realized that Aeon had not only saved the ranch from nature's challenges, but was now protecting it from people who saw it only as a commodity. One morning, the developers arrived again, this time with a lawyer and a stack of documents. They were ready to pressure Tom into signing, but Tom, with Aeon by his side, stood firm. "I will not sign anything," he said. "This ranch is my family's legacy, and no amount of money can replace it." Aeon stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We have documentation proving the history, improvements, and rightful ownership of this land. The community supports the ranch. We are prepared to fight for it, legally and morally, if necessary." The lawyer sneered, thinking they were bluffing, but Aeon's steady gaze and the presence of supportive neighbors made him hesitate. He realized that Tom and Aeon were not alone. They had a network of people and evidence that could not be ignored. Over the next few days, the developers tried every tactic to pressure Tom, but he refused to bend. Aeon continued to organize and strategize, using her intelligence, knowledge of the land, and connections in the community to protect the ranch. She reminded Tom that patience and careful planning were as important as courage. Slowly, the developers began to back down, realizing that they could not force this ranch from the hands of people who truly cared for it. One afternoon, after a particularly tense confrontation, Tom and Aeon walked through the pasture surveying the land. "I can't believe we did it," Tom said, his voice filled with relief. "I thought we'd lose everything." Aeon smiled faintly. "We didn't do it alone," she said. "The land, the animals, and the community all played a part, but we made sure to protect it." Tom looked at her with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved the ranch again, this time from people trying to take it. I owe you more than words can say." Aeon shook her head. "You don't owe me," she said softly. "I care for this land just as you do. We did this together." Despite her humility, Tom knew that Aeon had been the key. Without her courage, wisdom, and ability to rally support, the ranch might have been lost. He realized that her presence had become invaluable, not just for physical labor, but for strategy, leadership, and vision. As the weeks passed, the developers finally gave up, realizing that Tom and Aeon were determined and that the community stood firmly behind them. The ranch was safe, but the experience left Tom with a deeper understanding of what it meant to protect something he loved. It was not just about work, it was about dedication, planning, and standing up for what was right. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Tom and Aeon sat on the porch, watching the fields stretch out before them. The cattle grazed peacefully, the fences stood strong, and the land seemed calm once again. Tom felt a profound sense of gratitude. "You know," he said quietly, "I've faced storms and challenges my whole life, but this was different. You saved the ranch in a way that no one else could. I can't thank you enough." Aeon looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "The ranch is more than land," she said. "It's life, history, and hope. I couldn't let it be lost." Tom felt a deep respect and admiration for her. He realized that their bond had grown stronger through the challenges they faced together. Aeon was not just a helper, she was a partner, a friend, and someone who understood the value of what they were protecting. As night fell, the ranch was quiet except for the soft sounds of the cattle and the gentle rustle of leaves. Tom felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in months. The storm had passed, both literally and metaphorically, and the ranch stood stronger than before. He knew that future challenges would come, more storms, more difficulties. But he also knew that with Aeon by his side, they could face anything. Her courage, wisdom, and steady presence had saved the ranch, and her partnership had given him hope for the future. That night Tom whispered to himself, "We did it. We saved the ranch." And deep down, he knew that this victory was not just about land. It was about trust, partnership, and the courage to stand together against any challenge. With the threat of the developers behind them, life on the ranch settled into a comforting rhythm. The cattle grazed calmly on the green pastures, the fences stood sturdy, and the barns had been repaired stronger than before. Tom woke each morning with a renewed sense of purpose, and Aeon was always there, moving through the land with the same quiet confidence that had saved it time and again. The ranch, once fragile and at risk of being lost, now seemed full of life and potential, as if it were grateful for their care. One early morning, Tom walked through the fields, feeling the soft grass under his boots and listening to the low hum of the cattle. He paused near a stream, watching the water glint in the sunrise. Aeon approached quietly, carrying a basket of tools and supplies for their morning work. "Good morning," she said softly, smiling. "Good morning," Tom replied, smiling back. "I was just thinking, this land looks better than it has in years. I never imagined it could recover so well." Aeon shrugged modestly. "The land always heals if you give it time and care. It just needed the right attention and someone willing to listen." Tom nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that he owed more to Aeon than he could ever put into words. She had not only saved the ranch from natural disasters and human threats, but had also restored his hope, his courage, and his understanding of what it meant to truly care for the land. Over the next few weeks, they focused on improving the ranch even further. Aeon suggested planting new grass in areas that had been damaged during the storms, and they built a new water system to ensure that the cattle would always have enough to drink. She taught Tom clever ways to rotate the grazing areas, allowing the land to recover and remain fertile. Tom watched her work, amazed by her skill and foresight. He realized that she had become not just a helper but a true partner in every sense of the word. One afternoon, as they were fixing a fence along the edge of the pasture, Tom turned to Aeon with a serious expression. "Aeon, I've been thinking, you've done so much for this ranch. You saved it when I thought all was lost. I owe you more than words or money can ever express." Aeon shook her head gently. "You don't owe me, Tom. I care for this land. I couldn't let it be lost. What matters is that we've done it together." Tom looked at her, the sun casting a warm glow over the fields. "No, I mean it. You've gone above and beyond. I want you to have a permanent place here if you want it. This ranch is just mine anymore. It's ours if you want it to be." Aeon looked surprised but thoughtful. She had never expected such an offer. She had come to the ranch to help, not to gain ownership, but Tom's words touched her deeply. After a moment, she smiled. "I'd be honored," she said. "This land feels like home now. It's where I can make a difference, and I want to continue caring for it with you." Tom felt a rush of relief and happiness. For the first time in a long while, he felt that the ranch was not just surviving, it was thriving, with a future full of promise. The partnership he had formed with Aeon was strong, built on trust, respect, and shared effort. As the weeks turned into months, the ranch flourished. Neighbors and community members came to admire the work that Tom and Aeon had done, and some even offered to help with improvements or lend support when needed. The story of their perseverance spread, inspiring others in the region to care for their own land and communities. Tom realized that the ranch had become more than just a family property. It had become a symbol of resilience, hope, and partnership. One evening, after a long day of work, Tom and Aeon sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the hills. The sky was painted in brilliant oranges and pinks, and the air carried the gentle hum of nature settling for the night. Tom sighed, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. "You know," he said quietly, "I always thought the ranch was just land and livestock, but now I see it's more than that. It's life, history, and hope, and you've made all the difference." Aeon looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "The ranch is what it is because of the care and effort we put into it. It's not just me and it's not just you. We saved it together, and that's what makes it special." Tom smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had faced storms, threats, and uncertainty, but through it all, he had discovered the true value of partnership and trust. Aeon had been by his side, guiding, supporting, and inspiring him every step of the way. He realized that the ranch's future was secure not just because of hard work, but because of the bond they had formed. Over the next few days, they celebrated small victories on the ranch. New fences were completed, the cattle were healthy and strong, and the fields were lush with grass. Tom and Aeon worked together seamlessly, their teamwork a perfect balance of experience, knowledge, and intuition. The ranch had become a place of growth, not only for the land and animals but for themselves as well. One afternoon, as they walked through the pasture, Tom paused to look at Aeon. "I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done. You've saved this ranch more than once, and I feel like I owe you more than gold." Aeon smiled softly. "Your gratitude is enough," she said. "The ranch is alive again, and that's the reward. Seeing it thrive, knowing we protected it, that's worth more than anything else." Tom nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. He realized that true wealth wasn't measured in money or possessions, but in trust, friendship, and the sense of accomplishment that came from protecting something you loved. Aeon had taught him that lesson in ways he would never forget. As the seasons changed, the ranch continued to prosper. The cattle multiplied, the crops flourished, and the land remained fertile and healthy. Tom and Aeon developed new plans for the future, considering ways to expand and improve the ranch while preserving its natural beauty. They began teaching younger ranchers and neighbors some of the techniques Aeon had used, spreading knowledge and care throughout the community. One quiet evening, as the sky turned a deep indigo and stars began to twinkle overhead, Tom and Aeon sat on the porch, sipping warm tea and enjoying the peaceful sounds of the ranch. "We've come a long way," Tom said softly. "I never thought we'd reach this point after everything we faced." Aeon nodded, her gaze resting on the horizon. "We've faced challenges together and we've learned from them. That's what makes this place strong, and that's what makes our bond strong as well." Tom smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. He knew that the ranch was no longer just a property or a family legacy. It was a home, a symbol of resilience, and a place of shared purpose. And Aeon, who had once appeared unexpectedly, had become an irreplaceable part of it all. As night fell, the ranch was quiet and peaceful. The cattle lay in the pastures, the fences stood strong, and the land seemed to hum with life. Tom looked at Aeon, feeling a sense of gratitude that went beyond words. "Thank you, Aeon," he said quietly. "You saved my ranch, and now I owe you more than gold, not just for what you've done, but for everything you've taught me. For showing me the true meaning of care, partnership, and hope." Aeon placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes gentle. "You don't owe me," she said. "We saved it together. And as long as we continue working with respect for the land and each other, this ranch will thrive for generations to come." Tom smiled, feeling a sense of peace and certainty he hadn't felt in years. The ranch was safe, the land was alive, and the future was bright. He realized that the true reward was not wealth or recognition, but the bond they had formed, the lessons they had learned, and the knowledge that they had preserved something valuable for the future. In the months that followed, the ranch became a place of hope and inspiration for the community. Neighbors visited to learn from Tom and Aeon, and the story of their perseverance spread far and wide. The ranch was no longer just a home for cattle and crops. It had become a symbol of courage, partnership, and the power of working together. Tom often reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. He thought of the storms, the threats, and the challenges they had faced, and he realized that each obstacle had strengthened their bond and deepened their understanding of the land and each other. Aeon had been more than a helper. She had been a guide, a partner, and a friend. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Tom spoke again. "I don't know what the future holds," he said quietly, "but I know this. With you by my side, this ranch will continue to thrive. And I will always be grateful for everything you've done." Aeon smiled, her eyes reflecting the last light of day. "The future is what we make of it," she said. "And together, we can ensure that this land, this ranch, and everything it represents will remain strong for years to come." Tom looked out over the fields, feeling a deep sense of peace and satisfaction. The ranch had survived storms, threats, and uncertainty, and now it stood stronger than ever. But more importantly, he had found a partnership, a bond, and a sense of purpose that would guide him through whatever came next. And as night settled over the ranch with stars twinkling above and the gentle sounds of life all around, Tom whispered softly to himself, "We did it. Together we saved it. And together we will protect it always."